Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Cynthia Zeiden. I'm the National Program Chair for the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. We have produced this event today in conjunction with the Center for Investigative Reporting. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart KGO-TV, that's where we are today, especially Gary Schultz back there, who has worked very, very hard on this event, setting it up and getting us the permission to hold it here. So thank you so much, Gary, and thank you to your GM and all of the management who okayed this. I really appreciate it. We have a webcast going on, so there are those of you out there who are watching online. I just want to let you know, for those of you online, we're going to have presentations, and afterwards we're going to have a Q&A, and I'll be taking your questions online, so please ask lots of questions. And for those of you who are really here in person, when we get to the Q&A, we have a podium right there, so please go to the podium to ask your questions. And let me see if there was anything else I wanted to say. Oh, one more thing is, if you are not a member of the TV Academy, I want to urge you to become one. If you are in this Northern California region, our website is www.mesf.tv. And if you're not in this region and you're out there in Cyberland, go to the national site at www.meonline.org and then click on chapters, and you will be able to find the site for your local chapter. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to our moderator today, Barbara Rodgers. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you, Cynthia. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our online news forum. Our discussion this morning centers on the rapidly changing way in which the public gets and consumes news. According to the Pew Research Center's 2012 News Media Consumption Survey, 39% of respondents got news online or from a mobile device. That's up from 34% in 2010. And when other online and digital news sources are included, the share of people who got news from one or more digital forms on an average day rises to 50%. To help us all understand what this means for the news business, we have an outstanding panel to provide examples of how different news organizations integrate their content into their online mobile presence. Our panelists will also discuss new technologies, potential ad revenues, online mobile audiences, and several other aspects of online and digital news. Afterwards, all of you in our live and online audiences will be able to get involved, so have your questions ready. I'll start out by introducing our distinguished panel, and I'll be going right down the line to my left. First of all is Jonathan Mitchell. He is the Vice President of News for NBC Bay Area, the NBC Universal-owned television station serving the San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose market. Jonathan has nearly 20 years of broadcast experience that includes working as a news director in Spokane, Washington, and Toledo, Ohio. He also served in management roles in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Medford, Oregon. While at NBC Bay Area, Jonathan has made a serious investment in local journalism, building one of the largest investigative teams in the country. Next is Janice Jin. She is Associate News Director at KTVU Channel 2. She has been a broadcast journalist for more than 30 years. Janice started her career at KTXL-TV 40 in Sacramento and later moved to KGO-TV in San Francisco. Her management career has also taken her to WFMY in Greensboro, North Carolina, to Atlanta as executive producer of the 1996 Olympic Games for Gannett Broadcasting, and KPIX in Phoenix. Janice has been honored with Emmy, Merle, and Peabody Awards. She currently serves on the board of directors for the radio and television digital news organization formerly known as RTNDA. Brian Shields is online news manager at KRON-4 TV. In his position, he is responsible for all KRON-4 online efforts, including production of online news, promotions, and sales content for KRON4.com, supervision of the web operations department, and leadership of the development team for a major rebuilding of the station's primary websites. Brian has worked at WESH-TV Orlando, Florida, KXTV News 10, Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, and was Global News Manager at Applied Materials Incorporated in Santa Clara, California. Meghann Farnsworth is Senior Manager of Distribution and Online Engagement for the nonprofit Independent Center for Investigative Reporting. In her position, Meghann works with editors, reporters, and multimedia producers to create comprehensive distribution strategies in print, radio, television, and online media outlets, as well as blogs, online communities, and social media. In addition, she works to develop and maintain media partnerships and collaboration. Previously, she was the associate editor of forums at PBS's NewsHour, where she covered the 2008 presidential election and inauguration, and she created interactive online forums that help grow and engage the NewsHour's online audience. Most recently, Meghann was the senior digital media manager at Homefront Communications in Washington, D.C., where she worked in digital media management, interactive development, and outreach for nonprofit and government clients. Next is Jim Parker. He is the Director of Operations for CBS Local Digital Media at KPIX TV. Prior to joining CBS 7 years ago, Jim served in a management role at Belo Interactive, the online division for A.H. Belo Corporation's TV stations and newspapers. His career also includes stints as a news director and executive producer at television stations on both coasts and in the Midwest. Jim has completed fellowships in digital media strategies, the business of online journalism, and journalism law. He previously served on the faculty at Academy of Art University in San Francisco, teaching multimedia communications, and was a past executive in residence at the University of Oregon's Journalism School, lecturing on the topic of online journalism. And last but not least is our final participant, Rachel Schwartz, is senior online news producer at KGO-TV. She is an accomplished web producer with expansive experience in digital and social media platforms. In her current position, she writes, produces, and distributes content on social platforms. Prior to this position, Rachel was a web producer at KGO. She also worked at the San Mateo Daily Journal, and she will be participating in the Q&A part of this forum. So please welcome all of our panelists. We're going to start with a show and tell from each of our panelists on their organization's online presence, and we begin with Jonathan Mitchell of NBC Bay Area.
Great. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I wanted to tee up this conversation a little bit more from the executive level, from a higher, sort of where we're looking at things. And I think to tee the conversation up, we have to go back to a little bit of the history of why we are where we are at this point. And I'm going to use the San Francisco market as an example, but I think it really goes across, the whole country. So just a little more than 10 years ago, we had basically 6 general market stations, English-speaking stations in the marketplace, driving the revenue in the market. And really 4 of those stations were driving it. It was about $720 million worth of revenue. Today, we have really 8 general market stations, with 5 really taking the brunt of the revenue, and it's down to only $400 million. So where did it all go? I think we know. It went to alternative media, and I could have had a lot of fun with this slide and filled up the whole screen and just gone nuts. But really, a lot of people are in the content business now, and they're distributing it all over the place. So that's something, as TV stations, we were looking at going, well, this is a problem for us. So I love the 90s, because that's when I started in the business, in the early 90s. And when I got in the business, I had to keep an eye on basically a half-hour morning show at that time, half-hour at 5, a half-hour at 6, half-hour at 11, basically. And then we had, shows sprinkled throughout the weekends. So today, the experience has changed. It's a multi-screen experience. Most local TV stations and major markets are programming 5+, 6+, 7+ hours of news daily. And we all have a website, a mobile site, an app. We have Twitter accounts, Facebook pages, you name it, goes on and on, push alerts, newsletters, SMS. And then we have talent who we have to keep an eye on distributing content across their Facebook pages and Twitter accounts and Google Plus accounts, et cetera. But the bottom line here is content, in our opinion, is still king, right? But the distribution model's changed for all of us. We know that users are consuming content differently, and we need to be in that space. So, we're in the content creation business, and, ultimately from a business standpoint, I still want people to come to television, but as long as they're consuming my content, I don't really care where they get it from, because we're going to put it all over the place. We're going to get it out there. The bottom line for us in the TV business is we can't hold news hostage anymore. We used to like to have a big story, and we'd hide it over here, and we'd tease it all day long, and we'd say, here you go, at 11 o'clock, to try and drive those ratings and revenue. We can't do that. When a story breaks, you got to get it out there as quickly as you possibly can. So for us, when it comes to our content, it's really about being on brand to grow and growing our brand. That's really what it's all about. So we're looking to, create unique content and get it out there. Obviously, we're going to do day of news. That's price of admission. So we're going to do day of news. We're going to do breaking news. We're going to do weather. We're going to do sports. That's going to be on TV. That's going to be online. We're going to socialize it. It's going to be all over the place. But for us, what the differentiator is really unique content. That's what we're using to hopefully get people to drive in to see us. And we need that unique content to support our brand. So we developed a lot of enterprise franchises that we put on TV, but they have a robust section on our website. So people can go there and we can provide a little more depth. And that depth is important. It also gives us the opportunity online to provide exclusives, to do something that's unique, to really cross-promote and drive people between platforms. Something we talk about all the time, and this was different for NBC a couple years ago. I'll be honest with you, we had a different model a couple years ago. I think it hurt our brand, where they were saying, websites over here for the local TV stations are one thing, and on air is something different, and never the two shall meet. And when I came into the company, I said, that's crazy talk. And thank goodness we were purchased by some new folks, Comcast, God bless them, and we got some new management in, and they said, that's crazy talk. And so we really want to make sure our on-air and online are a reflection of each other. And so for us, we built our brand around investigative journalism and really enterprise journalism. And we're always, that's the conversation we have daily, is make sure if we're breaking that big investigative story, it's going across all platforms and they reflect each other. And that's really important for us. Cross-platform promotion, it's great. You gotta balance it out. It can't be, too much one way or the other. But we have this tremendous audience now that's all over the place. They're social, they're online, they're mobile, we're on air. So we have an audience. The TV audience has shrunk. I mean, I showed you that with the revenue. The revenue is a direct reflection of the audience. So the folks, consuming local news on TV, it's lower than it was, 10 years ago. We know that, right? But when you look at the overall audience, they're still there. They're just getting it in different places, okay? So that gives us a great opportunity to try and drive people back to TV, because from a business standpoint, unfortunately, that's still where we're making all of our money. The online money is just not there yet. We haven't cracked that code. As soon as we crack that code, we're not gonna be sitting here anymore, because we'll be raking in the dough. But we just haven't cracked that code. We're still making our money from TV, but we're trying to drive people across both those platforms. Grow that audience. So I know Cynthia asked, how do you make the sausage? And it's a lot different than it used to be. In 2009, when we had a very different philosophy, the web core team really drove 100% of the content. That's just not an effective model, in my opinion. You can't have 4 or 5 people trying to provide content 24 hours a day. It's just not going to work. Today, the brunt of the content is being driven by our non-core. We still have a web core team. We've grown the web core team. It's bigger than it was in 09, but now everybody's contributing. I mean, even our directors contribute. We've got some really bright directors. They're doing slideshows. They're writing stories. They come to us. We the benefit of being a non-union shop is everybody can contribute. We can all have a great time, and so everybody's involved. And we have processes that get everybody involved to make sure we're building that content throughout the day. Tools of the trade, one of the things they asked is, what are you guys using? It's nuts. We can easily have 10 programs open at the same time. We have our CMS, which everybody's going to have. We have our NRCS, which everybody's going to have, which is your online or your digital your newsroom system, basically how you're building your rundowns, doing your shows. Everybody has to have different skill sets now. You can't just have somebody who's a writer, somebody who's an editor. All of our web core, these guys are video editors, they're great writers, they know Photoshop. All of our content producers are video editors, they're writers, so they're all doing all of this constantly to build that content. We've always got TweetDeck open. We use all kinds of analytics to see what is surfacing on the web that we can push and drive, and then obviously all the social systems. And then on top of that, we have different systems for all of our push alerts and our newsletters. I mean, I feel bad for our web. When I walk by our web producers, they've just got windows open like you wouldn't believe. The other question came up on measurement. How do we measure for sales, and then how do we measure for ourselves? The great thing about our business is it depends on who you use, right? Especially in web. Alexa, ComScore, we're going to use Omniture to measure ourselves. You have Google Analytics, and of course our sales guys are going to use whoever, makes us look the best. That's what they're going to sell, right? So we might be number 1 on Alexa, we might be number 3 on ComScore, we might be number 5 on Google Analytics. You just never know. We're going to use whatever the best one we can to drive revenue. But the one thing I will tell you is first screen on TV has really changed. You know, first screen was probably made up about a year ago. It was about 60% of viewers use TV for first screen. Mobile was probably about 11%. It's now closer to 39 and 16, 17. So you're starting to see a big change in, you know, what your first screen usage is. People are not getting up in the morning and turning on that morning newscast like they used to. The first thing they're doing is picking up their mobile device, and they're getting their news from there. They're using Facebook to get news in the morning. So we're definitely seeing a change, and as an industry, we're all starting to really react to that. And you know, as a result, just to give you an example, when we're seeing that first screen usage in the morning changing, we've changed when people come into work on our mobile, on our web team. They're coming in as early as 5 o'clock in the morning now to make sure everything is set, to get that day set, because people aren't just, you know, they're turning us on second now when it comes to TV. So that's sort of where we are from an executive level. It's, you know, it's still a business. The core money is still in TV, but the audience is really across all platforms. And, you know, ultimately we're trying to figure out how to drive revenue on the online side.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And while Jonathan is getting up, Janice, you can start to get over and get your presentation ready. Next up is Janice Jin from KTVU TV in Oakland, but of course serving the entire Bay Area. Jonathan mentioned that everybody's still trying to figure out how to monetize all of this. We'll be talking about that in the Q&A, because that is still one of the big questions, how to monetize everything that's happening on the web. And lots of people say we should have started out in the first place with the cable model, where we charged them from day one, but I don't think anybody knew from day one what was going to happen, so nobody was really smart enough to do that at the beginning. All right, Janice Jin.
Thank you. I think it's all called about adaptability, because we don't know what the future is. And if we did, I'd be with Jonathan and we'd be rich. Though that still is my goal. I'm just going to give you an overview of kind of where KTVU is in this online world. And at KTVU, we're always on. We're 24/7 operation, and you know, we've been doing news since 1958 and haven't stopped. And you know, for some people on the inside, it might have gotten worse because we're doing 8.5 hours every day, and it's nonstop television. But that's what we do. But you know what? As you know, times have changed. Jonathan talked about it, and now with technology and lifestyle, the need for news has changed too. So we're in a society that needs to know right now. We don't like knowing later. We want to know right now, and then everything is extraordinarily immediate. So at KTVU, we have a multi-screen presence. It's an integrated approach to doing news, and we're not just on TV, but on your computer, on your smartphone, and on your tablet. And what we've learned as devices become more accessible, consumers are not just using one device at a time, they're using 2 and 3 at a time. Maybe not for the same reasons, like one is watching news, one is reading email, but all at the same time. We're all multitasking. So I was asked to say, what can I share with you guys in terms of numbers? This is our March report from our sales department, and it's out there to see how well we're doing this just past month on digital. 15 million views a month on our mobile, web, and iPad together. 2 out of 3 KTVU.com viewers actually come from inside the market. That also means 1/3 of our viewers are coming from outside the market. And it always drives me crazy interesting about who also is watching us. What we know about San Francisco is a lot of people live in other places that used to live here or are interested in here, and they want to know about what we're doing, and so they're checking us all out. Okay, KTVU.com, the news section alone hits 3.2 million page views just in March alone. Mobile delivered 8.1 million page views last month. And the iPad is 736,000 page views in March. We think it's really pretty good. Our iPad application is relatively new. We are in the process of getting an Android app to expand that. So let's look at KTVU.com, which is our main page. This is what we're doing on our website, and I wanted to see if we can actually go to our website. So let's see if this works. There it is. This is our home page, not our home page. This is our news page. And what we know is that people, for us, the number one thing that they're looking at on our website is for news. So we've created a news page. This is a Macintosh. I don't know how to make it work. But I would scroll for you and show you how we've placed all of our stories so they're sort of done by geography. So when you go to the news section, if you're interested in news in your area where you live or an area of your concern, you can actually do it by geography a little bit. It's just a way to organize how we see, how the viewers experience our website where it makes it easy. What we know is if you live in Marin County, you really don't care what's happening in my neighborhood, and vice versa. So we're trying to organize it in that way to make it easy. What we want to do at KTVU is make sure that people know and that we're dependable, that they know that they can come to us and they will get news. We've been known as a news station, an aggressive, hard news station, and that's what we're wanting to give them, that kind of experience. So here's what it looks like on KTVU.com. So you can see the bar graph. I love visuals here. You can see how far, how much the news is what's driving our website. And I wanted to mention that I'm always taken aback by the gallery, which is the slideshow. And you see that's the number 2 thing. Now, you know, the number compared to the news thing is not as big, but it still is the number 2 thing on the website. And I was mentioning to somebody on the panel earlier that I find it very interesting that in the top 10 of galleries or slideshows every month is a slideshow we have of fugitives in the Bay Area. That slideshow has been up for a very long time, but it continues to get hits all the time. It's in our top 10 gallery. I don't know why. If anybody has any criminal explanation, please let me know. All right. So the other thing that we're doing at KTVU, and we're very proud of, is our live stream. We live stream all of our newscasts on all of our platforms. So not just on the website, but also on your phone. We can live stream to your phone, and for visual aid, your iPad. What it does is it really extends our ability to deliver news to our viewers, to people who like KTVU. While yes, we would love for them to be watching television because there is more revenue in television, we also want to make sure that our viewers understand that they can count on us no matter where they are and what they're doing. We have quite a few people who watch us actually at work. Don't tell their bosses, but we like that. They're watching our new news. They let us know if something happens on the web stream, on the live stream. So they're watching us, and they're watching our newscast. So every single one of our newscasts is on the live stream. But we are also nonstop. So in between our newscasts, this is my brainchild. I thought it was really, really easy. In between the newscasts, we always have some kind of picture up. We were showing the Oakland estuary because that's what the camera showed. And then this light show happened over on the Bay Bridge. And I just think it was so cool that I asked Master Control to put that up at night so you can watch the light show live. Because we're going to have a picture up anyway, right? So we put it there. In March, our live stream gathered over 440,000 views on all of our platforms combined. And this was a non-revenue generating, non-expense generating thing, and I just think it's really cool. I don't know, I thought it was cool. All right, so social media. Social media does drive KTVU viewers, drives all of our viewers. We use all of these applications and more. I didn't put Google Plus up here. I forgot about them. Still new to me. But because I'm mostly looking at a lot of Facebook and Twitter kind of material. But we have everybody doing this, you know, trying to use this to drive our audience. And I think it works. But I think that the real thing we have to figure out is how to use the tool. So we have a lot of people on Twitter, and you know Twitter is really about breaking news, what I call quick hits. So you want to hit it, you want to understand the tool and use it to your best advantage to get people to watch you on your platforms. So if that is right before a newscast, we ask our reporters if they have something to tweet, say, hey, I'm going to have that story at 10. or engage in a conversation or do some kind of community engagement where were you there, send us your picture, to use it for that task. On this idea, I use the word megaphone. I think some people just use the word promotion, but I just try to keep away from that marketing kind of sound. And just use Twitter as your megaphone, as your voice, if you will, to put it out there. A long time ago, my husband works in social media a lot, and we had a young guy, over talking to us about, he was doing servers, and at that time I didn't get Twitter. And I said, I don't get it. Why do I want to know what some unknown person to me is eating for breakfast? I have no desire to know that. And he said to me, you know, it's about the ability to tell somebody. It's not necessarily the need to have been heard. So I thought that really changed my thinking about Twitter. If what we want to do is tell somebody on the hope that they heard, that's still good because we're still telling. And as people get to use Twitter more, they understand that value. And I only use that as an example to say that we really, when we have all these social tools, I think sometimes we're in that stage in our development, if you will, to understanding tools better and how to maximize it for your own need, your own station's need. So I just wanted to show you this page we created that says, you know, here's our Facebook stuff. I'd scroll, but I can't. But you know, who's following us? Not who, but how many people are following us and how many people are fans. We have all of our, not quite all, but a lot of our on-air talent on Facebook. A lot of them with Twitter accounts, asking them to participate in trying to get those viewers. And the last thing I want to say, this overview, while this actually also came from sales, and this is our, in a nutshell, what March looks like. You kind of see this, everything kind of goes in a circle, but I think the circle's wrong. I think that for every element, every platform you have here is an arrow that goes to all the other platforms. It really is not circular, one leads to another, but it really is an integrated effort of trying to use all of your platforms, and that's what we do, is try to use all of our platforms to enhance for the viewers at home, the users at home, their best experience of what they want to know, which is news. So we can assure our viewers that, here's my little circle, anytime, anywhere. The idea is for KTVU News to be anytime, anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Up next, we're going to hear from Brian Shields from KRN4TV. And while Brian is getting into place, I'll give you my theory on what Janice asked, why is the Fugitive Gallery such the highest hits every month? I think it's because people are absolutely fascinated, first of all, by crime. That's why we have so many crime shows on to begin with. And secondly, I think in an area like this, probably in any area though, people are very curious about whether any of those fugitives are their next door neighbors, because we really find so many times when we go out to do news stories and we start talking about who the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator is, that he lived next door to somebody who didn't know he was there. And so I think people are very curious about, you know, who are the fugitives and who are the police looking for, because he may be the guy at my church, he might be the janitor at my kid's school, he might be my next door neighbor. So I think that's, people are just very curious because it has happened so often that it is somebody in the neighborhood. Okay, Brian Shields from KRN-TV.
All right, thank you very much, Barbara. So our first two panelists are much higher up on the executive food chain than I am. I'm a in-the-weeds kind of daily news grind kind of person, so my presentation is less sort of highfalutin overview and more about, you know, what we're doing day-to-day online in our efforts at KRON 4. We have just recently launched a new website. It is not complete at this point. We are still implementing it slowly, but I wanted to give you a kind of a heads up that good things are coming. We have a corporate commitment now to actually doing, to focusing on making a usable news site that people would care to go to, and perhaps not something that was so sales focused as in the past. The new website is WordPress-based, which was very important for us. Makes it good, again, across all platforms. As I mentioned, not fully implemented, but things to just kind of keep an eye out on the future from us. We're working really hard to integrate a lot more of the data and a lot more of the information coming from our on-air weather capabilities and bring that online. Same thing with traffic. And one thing that we really focus on very seriously and that I want to talk about a little bit more is that we are very UGC focused at KRON 4. UGC, if you're not familiar with the acronym, is user-generated content, reaching out to our user base and to our viewers and to our readers in order to really augment our coverage both online and on television and, as mentioned before, across all the different platforms. Now, doing web at KRON 4 is a little different than what you'll find at a lot of our different competitors. A lot of them have very large news staffs, and obviously Jonathan talked about the importance of getting content from everybody in the newsroom, and that is certainly something that we're still working on. But right now we have, in terms of full-time people just focusing on the web, it's me and one other person. So it's not like I am the boss of a grand empire here. But you know, I mean, that's again one of the fun things about working at a place like KRON is that you have you're asked to work really hard, you're asked to do a lot, but you're also given the freedom to try new things. We do 9.5 hours of local news a day, barely beat you there, but so there's a lot of content out there and a lot of things that need to be transitioned over to the web. And as you probably know, KRON 4 has really been the pioneer in this market and in a lot of major markets in terms of using the VJ model. We have no news crews. Everybody who goes out into the field, you know, does the interviews, writes, shoots, edits, goes to the local Starbucks and sends it in. And so to ask them to do a whole lot more for the web is an ongoing challenge for us, but something that we're certainly focused on as well. Like I said before, one of the benefits about working at a place like KRON 4 is that there aren't 15 layers of management there to tell us, no, you can't do that. Oh, we got to have a committee to investigate whether we're, you know, if we find something, if we like it, you know, I've come across tools that I read about on Mashable that morning and we were implementing and trying them that afternoon. And that's one of the really fun things. We have very strong management support. I'm going to talk about curation here in a minute, and that's obviously something that squeamish management would not be as aggressive as we are in terms of content curation and that sort of thing. And we are extremely big story focused. We are extremely breaking news focused. We know that, you know, if something's going on in Washington, D.C. or Botswana or Moscow or somewhere else that, you know, you're probably going to CNN.com or the New York Times or the Daily Mail or one of the other things. But if something's happening right here in the Bay Area, those are the times that we see our largest traffic spike. Obviously, we're very earthquake focused here. And we're working on really making our earthquake section much more developed. But certainly those kinds of big local stories, things like the Chevron fire and the like, we are inundated with traffic. We're inundated with UGC as a result of that. And we work really hard to be able to take all that content and move it around and make sure that it's exposed on as many different platforms as we can. One of the conscious decisions that we've made at KRON 4, and part of that is because of the legacy of the website, which was perhaps not as news focused as we had wanted it in the past, but we are very, very, very Facebook focused at KRON 4. We are very serious about having a 24/7 news operation on Facebook, and we really do believe that it drives engagement, and I know that's kind of a buzzword, but we really find it, especially, you know, in big news stories and galleries, as we talked about earlier, that really you can get people interested and get people involved and get people feeling passionate, and we do find that does turn into people turning in and looking and watching for themselves in their comments on television, because we do that pretty aggressively. Obviously, all of our talent has Facebook pages and Twitter accounts. We're asking them to push photographs especially, behind-the-scenes kinds of stuff, breaking news photographs, all that sort of thing. Everyone in the newsroom does post to Facebook, again, that's very important that we have that very vigorous 24/7 kind of new content coming up on Facebook. We also are very judicious in the way that we pre-schedule content, both using the Facebook page's own ways of scheduling content in the future, as well as using other tools out there like Hootsuite and the like. Picture galleries, as we talked about, these are great traffic drivers for us, especially on the Facebook, in both in terms of breaking news, as well as fun things like people sending themselves pictures of them having fun at the Giants game. As you can see, Facebook again drives engagement for us in terms of just getting people really involved and feeling passionate about what we're doing. It does work on television. We do have daily segments, both in our morning and evening shows, in which we highlight various comments and other information and photos that we get out of Facebook. One of the things that we're really passionate about in terms of what we're doing online, and especially both in terms of comments on the website, but especially on Facebook, is that we think it really does require curation. We have a very strong about statement. It's right up front, and we let everybody know what the rules are. We welcome all comments that are respectful and on topic, but comments containing obscene, racist, homophobic, or otherwise inappropriate language and that attack others will be deleted, and posting privileges may be rescinded. All comments containing external links will also be deleted. And so we think that one of the reasons that, even though we may not have the largest number of Facebook followers and likes in the market, we think that the marketplace of ideas that we create there really works because we are very aggressive in getting rid of the trolls, in not putting up with obscenities, in not putting up with people who just want to come up and pick a fight, because we've all been in troll wars on the internet, and we all know that it's not pleasant, and we think it's very important at our forum here that we create an environment where people feel safe and are able to post what they want. We're not apologetic about the fact that we are generalists. We cover everything from the creepy child molester to National Puppy Day, and we will turn on a dime. We don't put up with a lot of the whiners of, oh, this isn't news. Oh, why don't you post something important? It's like, if you don't like what we want, sorry, move along. And we have management that backs us up on that, and I think that's one of the reasons that we've been as successful as we have. Talked about that. Off-topic comments, people who want to post all sorts of other rants about things that are off-topic. See ya, we're gone. And then, obviously we get a lot of people that are like, yeah, but what about free speech? Don't I have a First Amendment right to say whatever the heck I want, whenever the heck you want? And the answer, quite simply, is no, you don't, especially in a forum like Facebook, where when you joined, you've agreed to abide by the terms of service, and you have the absolute right to say whatever the heck you want, as long as it's under the Facebook terms of service on your page, on your post. But you're not coming to my place and slamming me. You're not coming to my place and cursing up a storm. And we feel very strongly about that, and we curate that content very closely. So that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about, which is, again, a little bit more in the weeds than some of the bigger overview that you've heard earlier. But at KRON, we have we're very strong and feel very strongly that what we're doing online complements and adds to what we're doing on television, and that creating a safe and positive environment in a scary place like Facebook is possible, and that we think our users appreciate that. So.
Thank you, Brian. Next presentation is by Meghann Farnsworth from the Center for Investigative Reporting. And as Meghann's setting up, I actually just had one quick question for Brian. You said with only two people, how do you monitor Facebook 24/7 with only two people?
Well, number one, I don't have a life. Well, seriously, I am one of those people that, I was BBSing back in the 80s. I'm one of those people that I've been doing, like I like to say, I've been doing social media since before Al Gore invented the internet. And so I think it's got to be something that's just part of your lifestyle, that you're just always keeping an eye on things. My producer's the same way. My boss, the news director, is the same way. We really are serious about what we're trying to do in terms of curating this content, and we think do we catch every single F-bomb that's out there? Probably not, but we've created an environment where people don't feel as comfortable posting inappropriate content because they know that they will be moved along. And whenever we post, occasionally we will post links to that about statement that goes through and detail what the rules are, and you get 8 or 9 people that are like, the fascists are, and you get 75, 80, 100 people that are like, right on, this is what we want. And so we get that, and we think it's really effective.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Now, Meghann Farnsworth.
Hi, everyone. This on? Everyone hear me? So I think I'm even going to get more in the weeds than Brian did, which is kind of cool. It's a nice setup. So I run online engagement and distribution for the Center for Investigative Reporting, which, unlike everyone up here, doesn't have a broadcast outlet for our own. We are web-based completely, but part of my job as distribution senior manager is to work with a lot of people actually up here to get our content on either news outcasts in terms of broadcast, radio, other online sites. So our goal really, we are focused on our online platforms, as I'll show you, and we create it, but a lot of our content has to travel. We don't necessarily care about the hits on our site. We want the story to go to where the audience is, and that often is not on our own platform. So just to give you a little overview, these are our kind of 4 main sites. We have the Center for Investigative Reporting, which is a national brand. We have the Bay Citizen, which we merged with last year, which is focused on the Bay Area. We have California Watch, which is focused on statewide issues. And we have a YouTube channel called the iFiles, which is focused on curating investigative video from around the world that is actually extremely popular. We have over, it says 2 million hits here, but 8 million actually now. And we have a lot of partners that contribute to that, including Reuters, New York Times, Vice, NPR, places like that. So these are our platforms right now, and we really look at it currently, although we are kind of rethinking it right now in terms of our geographic location. And we're also, in terms of everyone up here, not focused on breaking or daily news. So we struggle a lot with the balance of what is our role in online media in terms of local news. So for California Watch, how often do we need to update our site? How do we play both with our partners but also contribute larger to the conversation? People are coming to us for more in-depth news than rather what happened, but really what happened. So we're kind of 3 steps down the line, and we're really kind of struggle with that balance online. So as I just said, our main goal is to get our stories off our page. So here's a story by Aaron Glantz wrote on the number of veterans who are dying waiting for their disability benefits claimed. And we partner with the Daily Beast on this story. On the left-hand side, you can see, and that got just hundreds of thousands of hits on their site. It was shared over 2,000 times. Our site, again, much smaller, but the story got great branding. I'll show you another slide where it has a map of ours, and links back to our site. So again, the Daily Beast didn't have the story we did, and we were able to partner with them to bring it to a wider audience, making sure that it was with DC audience, which was the goal of this. But again, it had links back to our site. We had more information on our website that Daily Beast linked back to. This is actually NBC Bay Area, a recent story we did with you guys. Another part of it is getting our stories on air. Oftentimes, because we don't have a platform of our own, we work with our partners to have our reporters on air. This is a story that we worked with the NBC Bay Area on ex-officers investigating police-involved shootings. Shoshana Walter went on air, talked about it. We gave them access to our data. We did an interactive map that showed officer-involved shootings involved in the Bay Area that was embeddable. It was really simple, easy Google map that was on our website. night, but it was also NBC Bay Area, so they can get the hits. It works for both of us, but of course it was also on our website as well. But again, thinking about how your content can travel and live off your own brand is really important for us. I think it's really important for all media going forward in general, because it just has to look good so that people who have different audiences, you can use it and get your staff on their platforms. So just getting even further in the weeds here is another thing we're focused on is interactives. This is a veterans map that we built last year that shows for every VA in the country how long veterans are waiting for access to their disability care. And it's important for us to think nationally, but also locally, because we have this blend of, we want the story, we want more people to see it, but we also want to work with local media to tailor the story. We can't cover the entire country. We do, we have a large staff of 70, but that's nothing compared to a lot of the news organizations. And we can't pretend to say that we can cover Denver, Colorado, for example, better than Denver newspapers or TV stations there. So what we've done with this particular map is we've opened the access to it for news organizations. If anyone wants it, you can contact me. And we will give you the back end so you can feature it on your page. We'll give you the data for your area. It updates weekly with the federal government data that we've curated in. And we're also featuring stories from our partners about the local veterans there. So again, it's the experience of, this works on a lot of different ways for our partners in that they get to show their audience what's happening, but it works for us in that we can really show the different variety of conversations happening out there around veterans issues, which is what we cover, one of our main points of coverage. Again, another example, Stars and Stripes. This is just kind of showing you how it's embeddable. We have our brand up at the top. Again, it's Stars and Stripes gets to have the clicks. It works for them, but our brand is there. We also can track the hits, so we know, hey, is this map working really well for Stars and Stripes? Maybe it's not. Maybe Daily Beast was more popular than Stars and Stripes. So it helps us better understand how we can create content that travels really well and fits audiences in general. Again, the map is also built to look great on broadcast. Rachel Maddow used it on air. She was able to tailor it. But that's another important thing for us, is that when people take screenshots of our content, how does it look on broadcast? Does it look pretty? Are they able to tailor it? Again, we don't have broadcast, but people want to use it, and we want to make sure it looks as best as possible so the story gets out to more people. I wanted to show another kind of interactive, just getting to kind of talk about how people use our content. This is an interactive we built in 2010 on the seismic safety of California schools. And this showed fault lines, AP fault zones, liquefaction zones, and we did a 2-year investigation into how safe California schools actually were. And so one of the things that we learned from this, I'm actually stealing slides from one of our interactive guys, Michael Corey, is we try and make as content as easy as possible. People have a lot of options out there. They don't not need to go to California Watch. So we try and make our content as accessible as possible. And one of the things we've learned is that having different access points, this had 10,000 school pages. So again, localizing is really important for us, so that somebody in San Jose could easily go in, click on their school, and it's like, oh, that's all I care about is San Jose, and we had those pages available. And more importantly, we also had these pages available for our partners. So this ran, I think, in over 80 outlets. I was exhausted when this ran, but we allowed the news organizations to post, it would scroll down right to their schools. So you could have this embedded on your site, and you were in LA, and bam, when you went to it, it would scroll down to LA. So in terms of using that data, though, because our content often lives off our site, we're constantly looking into who the heck is using it. And part of that, what we learned with this particular interactive, is that there were a huge number of engaged parents that were looking at a small amount of schools. So they were looking at it a number of times. And then there were super engaged parents who were looking at a small number of schools, 100 to 120 times. And because engagement is really part of our mission, again, we want to find out how could we have done more with those parents who are clicking on a small number of schools, and we could have gone to them and provided them more data, gone down doing a presentation. We really want to learn from the data that we have in the interactives, because it lives off our platform, of who's using it and how can we go there and talk to them about us and give them more information, or work with one of our partners down there to say, hey, San Jose is like blowing up on our site. Maybe we could hold an event because it's obvious that parents here really care about it. The next thing I'm really focused on is thinking of new audiences. So we have a junior watchdog section that's just for kids. And we're really focused on trying to cultivate the next generation of investigative reporters, or people who are just interested in what we do. So this section is really trying to speak to kids about investigative reporting, which is extremely difficult. But we've put together a series of puppet show videos explaining kind of concepts to kids. We have a coloring book where they can learn about the what to do in a natural disaster that you can color both online, and we've distributed about 150,000 of them to California schools. This is not the most pretty, and I would really like to redesign it and think of new ways we can do it. But it's a great concept, and this is just kind of a screenshot of our puppet shows. The top one is teaching kids about what happens if you suck on your jewelry because it has lead in it, so don't do that. And the other one is about clean water. So if your soda bottle if you throw it into the river, what happens to it? So again, thinking about how your content can be reinterpreted for new audiences is really important for us, because we can't depend on our audience always being there, and so we really want to bring kids with us and get them so that they're engaged with us, but also then their parents are engaged with us. So we're also, I'm not doing a bunch on social media, but I also run a team of about 5 people who help me on all this. One of the things that we try and do, because we're investigative reporting, is we have a lot of dense data. It's really hard to get into it. So we do breakouts and infographics a lot so that's easily shareable. So, this is why veterans are waiting longer. We broke this out into, it's a much longer one where it's easily digestible of why veterans are actually waiting longer. So how many are there? What benefits are they waiting on? This actually traveled much better than our story did, because it was really simple, and people get numbers, they get days. They may not read a 5,000 word story, but they shared this on Facebook, which is fine with us. This is just a kind of a screenshot of Facebook for us. We post images and questions, but also follow-ups to our investigations that actually often do better than the initial investigation. Someone on my staff wrote this about the ACLU launched an investigation to the militarization of America's police force based and referenced our work that we had launched last year into this. So we wrote a roundup of this, referenced our reporting, reminded people the billions of dollars in grants that's available to the police department. This got shared nearly 400 times and sparked huge discussion on Facebook and different platforms. Again, that did much better than our initial investigation did, but it showed that people, were still interested. They wanted to know what was happening with it, and we got great clickbacks to our initial investigation. Kind of some last couple of slides here is because a lot of our content lives off of our platforms, we are also trying to curate that back onto our site. This is a screenshot of Rebel Mouse, which is a cool new tool. If you don't know of it, I highly suggest it, which basically you can pull in all the links or conversation that's happening about your stories into it, and you can embed it on your site. So this is just a screenshot of the people who have covered our veterans coverage. Again, PBS NewsHour, AARP, MSNBC, all of these have their own communities, and that's great, but we want to show both our funders and also our readers how much impact this story is making. So again, you may not come to our website and stay and comment, but we do want to show, hey, this is why this story is a really big deal. And Rebel Mouse is a really cool and free tool to use that. Finally, just in terms of mobile, we've done one mobile app. It's not a huge strategy for us, but it's something we're really focused on doing better. Again, it's hard because we're not a destination site of what works best for us. We don't constantly update. This one was one of my favorites, so it's the only one we did, but it's a favorite one of mine in that I still use it when I apartment hunt. It's called My Fault, and you can download it still, and it's free. But basically, you can hit the geolocate on the button, and it'll show you what seismic hazards are near you. So if you're a parent and you go to your school, you can geolocate yourself, and it'll tell you, are you on a fault line? Are you on a liquefaction zone? And so you can learn a little bit more about where you are and what issues are around you. It won't tell you everything, but like, for example, I live on a liquefaction zone, which sucks. So, as I look for new apartments, I've actually been using it to see what would be a better place for me to live. So again, we'd love to do more with mobile, but it's really, for us, it's focusing on how do we contribute to the conversation, and how can we really add value versus what other news organizations are doing.
Thank you, Meghann. Our next presentation is by Jim Parker of CBS and KPIX TV, and while he is getting set, we would like to thank Anthony Nielsen, pandodaily.com for providing our great webcast, and all of you who are out there watching and listening on the web, please do get your questions in, because we're going to be asking some questions later of our panelists. So if there's something that occurs to you, please do send it in. We have somebody over here who is Cynthia, is over here taking all that information in. So now let's welcome Jim Parker of CBS and KPIX TV.
All right, I guess if we were in the weeds, I don't know where we're going now. Because on the screen there is what I call Welcome to My World. I'm Director of Digital Operations for all of CBS's properties in the Bay Area here, which is 2 television stations and 4 radio stations. Obviously, one of the radio stations, KCBS, is all news. The others are music radio. And in addition to KPIX TV, we also have KBCW, the CW affiliate. So my fingers are into a lot of different digital pieces. I frequently suffer from newsheimers, which is basically just information overload. In my role, I have reporting lines all over the place. I have dotted lines to the general managers for both television and radio in the market. And then I also have a line to the executive vice president for digital media in New York. So, the focus, I guess, that CBS has taken is one of the notion of, if you really want to be a player in the digital space, then you really need to have people who are specifically accountable for digital media, and that's their top priority. As somebody who's been on the broadcast side of things and has spent more recent times on the digital end of things, in the day-to-day newsroom battles, we get consumed by a lot of other things that, quite frankly, are our primary focus, because as a number of folks have mentioned on the panel here, the broadcast end is still where the overwhelming bulk of the revenues are being generated. So not surprisingly, if in the course of your day you're torn between what am I doing on air, what am I doing on my digital platforms, not surprisingly, on air is where your attention is going to go. So that's a little bit about kind of the CBS view and strategy. Now, I will give this disclaimer for my overall presentation here. Views expressed are those of yours truly and may not necessarily reflect those of CBS. But every one of these tidbits that I'm going to share with you in terms of kind of my view of the world are things that I do apply daily, and any of the folks who work for me will tell you that they hear a lot of these notions repeatedly out of me. So our news portal, if you will, CBS SF Bay Area, which is a combination of the reporting of KPIX TV and also of KCBS All News Radio. It is, according to ComScore, the #1 broadcast-affiliated website in the Bay Area, which I think probably speaks to the combined power that you have of both television and radio together. And you're seeing that in a fair number of markets where you have ownership that has both radio and television. You're seeing a lot more, I think, of these combined websites where you say, look, why should we be competing against ourselves? Let's aggregate as large a news and information audience as you can. When we consider who our competitors are, your competitors extend beyond traditional media outlets, and I think that's something that can't be stated enough. Our competition isn't just NBC and KTVU and KRON and ABC7. It goes much, much broader than that. It goes to a lot of the national players. The Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, all have San Francisco sections to their website, all do local reporting out of here. The Yelps of the world are competitors for all of us. They're providing hyper-local information. And they compete for advertising revenues, which is really the big key. At the end of the day, our competitors are anybody who compete against us for advertising revenue. And online, that space is infinite and it's huge. The tent poles, if you will, of content for our site, not surprisingly, news, sports, and lifestyle, plus weather and traffic. Now you say lifestyle, wait a minute, what's this lifestyle? News, sports, weather, traffic, I get all of that. Lifestyle, I think, is one of those things that's key because it really has an opportunity for you to be a differentiator and gets beyond just okay, news, because in the public's mind, we're all kind of the same. We'll all privately hate to admit that, or actually even publicly, thump our chests and go, well, we're better than the other guys, because in the minds of the public, day in, day out, they see a lot of I can find out about the car wreck, the fire, whatever. We're all going to have that story. So you have to look for those opportunities to differentiate yourself. I will point out for a moment, just because Janice in her presentation was talking about their site, news is the overwhelming driver. Ours, just to give you a little alternate data there, two biggest things on our site, traffic and weather. And that's where it kind of dovetails online, dovetails with on air. KCBS, our all news radio, they like to, as they like to say, you get 1,000 traffic reports a week on air. And not surprisingly, the strength of the traffic brand carries over into online. We're an online destination. If you're about to leave the office, hit the road, going home, and want to know the pitfalls to avoid. Weather, not surprisingly, KPIX, a very strong weather brand. They've got a very powerful radar that the National Weather Service even relies on in its forecasting. And so, not surprisingly, that strength, that on-air strength, translates to online. So now let's talk about content, which is king. And as I was saying, it's more than just news. Lifestyle, to me, is critical. What you're seeing there is our section that we would call Eye on the Bay, which those of you in the Bay Area here know emulates from an award-winning evening magazine-style show that KPIX ran for many, many years that examined lifestyle in the Bay Area. The show has since been jettisoned from TV. Doesn't fit the current economic models on air, but we've continued that brand, which is a very powerful brand, online, and provide you everything that you'd want to know in terms of a resource guide for arts and culture, shopping, nightlife, travel, food, and broken out based on regions of the Bay Area. I say lifestyle content is so important because this is an opportunity to be a differentiator. Our lifestyle content, Eye on the Bay, pulls in as many unique users each month as does our sports section, if that gives you a sense of the value of this content. Lifestyle is also a driver to many other news and information sites, particularly if you look at our counterparts in the newspaper industry. SF Gate, which is the 900-pound gorilla here in the Bay Area in terms of news and information. There are more people who consume lifestyle-related content on SF Gate than consume news and information. There's far more traffic driven there by their food and wine reviews, by travel, by real estate, by all of those things that factor into the quality of our life. So I think any news and information site that doesn't get beyond just the hits, runs, and errors of what's on fire, who died, and so forth, is missing out on an opportunity. When we look at content, you always have to keep in mind the difference between what a TV audience wants and what a web audience wants. And they're different audiences. They consume media differently. Now, there is some overlap, but not exclusively, particularly in a market like San Francisco, which has some of the lowest household using television numbers in the country. I was amazed when I first moved here. The lowest, there we go. So, I was amazed. So consequently, your online audience are a lot of people who may never watch, never see your on-air product, but they believe in the value of your brand. The brand has cachet that extends well beyond on air. And this gets into, okay, we either get to these people online or one of our competitors will. Obviously, we want to be your source of news and information. We don't care in which form you're getting it. So you always have to keep that in mind. When I was at BELO, we used to talk about a concept we called U2, unique and unduplicated. And that's really what you're seeking at the end of the day. And it's kind of where Eye on the Bay originates from, is this notion of giving me something that I can't just get anywhere else. Because once again, news is a commodity that actually one could argue is overly commoditized. There's so much of it. It's coming at us from all directions. I may see something on Twitter. I don't remember who was first to tell me. I don't even remember half the time where I just know that, oh, okay, one of the news entities that I follow just told me X is going on. So, so this is a way to kind of distinguish, set apart your brand, and go beyond what's on TV. If all your web presence is doing, in my mind, is duplicating the on-air product, you've missed a tremendous opportunity. And once again, that gets back to kind of the understanding of what people are looking for on the web versus TV. They don't just want to watch a newscast again. They can do that. They can go, watch that on TV. They can DVR it if they're that terribly interested in seeing a newscast. It tends to be on the web. They're looking for specific types of information. As was alluded to by Janice, I think, it's, hey, I care about what's happening in my neighborhood. I don't really care what's happening in your neighborhood. So all news is local. And it only means something if it means something to me. And so television, broadcasting, we're trying to paint a broad brush, reach a broad audience. The web is much more about narrow casting, or even what I would call one casting. It's about connecting with that individual. Things that we find take you beyond TV that I've found over the years do particularly well. TV's well suited for it. Raw and unedited video. People want to see what hit the cutting room floor, if you will, and didn't make it on air. And obviously, the web is a tremendous place to be able to show that. Everything from, hey, extended video from your helicopter hovering over the fire. People love that type of, if I'm interested in that, I want to watch more. This is your opportunity, if you've got an exclusive interview with someone, to be able to show me, those portions of the interview that didn't make the, the $1.30 or 2-minute piece that you have on air. The popularity of that, to give you one example, we do during football season. NFL is very restrictive about, as are most of the major sports entities, about what you can and can't put online and how much content you can use. KPIX, through a contract that we have with the 49ers to do their preseason games, we also get an exception to the NFL rules that allows us the exclusive right for all of Coach Harbaugh's news conferences to be able to live stream those and archive those. You would not believe the phenomenal traffic that does during football season. That will be one of our top traffic items week in, week out. Because, once again, it's something I can't get anywhere else. And if I'm a rabid 49er fan, I live, breathe, and die by every word that the coach gives in terms of what we did this past weekend, what we plan to do this coming week. So those types of things work well. Long-form journalism, the opportunity on the web, once again, going beyond TV here, to expand things. We'll frequently have reporters who have put together pieces for on air. And then a producer comes back and tells them, can you take that piece and can you cut it? You now have 1:30. Well, but wait a minute. My piece is 2:30. Well, great. On the web, we will frequently go and, okay, bing, here's the extended version. Gives the opportunity to, to tell the story above and beyond, and the opportunity to promote the fact that, okay, there's a longer form version available online. Provide transparency is one of the key things I think we can do with news websites. And when I say transparency, I mean, if you're like Jonathan and you're doing a lot of investigative work, here's your opportunity online to back up that investigative reporting. If you're going to tell me you've obtained documents that document a long history of abuses and, blah, 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 well, here's your opportunity to make all of that available to the public so that they can see the basis for your reporting and know that, okay, look, you don't believe the conclusions that we've reached. You can take a look, and reach them for yourself. When you get into political season and you're dealing with polling, we do this frequently. If we're saying, hey, look, here's our latest poll results on whatever, we'll put all the demographic data, polling data online so that you, the user, can go, and more than just the quick overview that we've given you, you can go and, if you're interested, delve into the data and get a true sense for what's driving the meter, how the questions were asked, how different demographic groups responded. The final point I'll make about content. text still rules. And that's hard, I think, for TV people sometimes to understand, because you want to believe it's all about the video. Web prime time is 9 to 5. It's while people are in the office and at work. And someone mentioned up here that, yeah, that a lot of people are looking at us at work. What we know at work is people's ability to consume audio and video is somewhat limited versus text. Because, by gosh, if your boss walks by, he's going to want to know what you're doing watching some video. If your boss walks by and you're, reading something on the screen there, well, you could be doing research, you could be doing who knows what. So text still rules. It also still rules for SEO purposes, because even though Google's gotten into trying to index video, the amount of metadata associated with video these days is still relatively small versus deep contextual content. So, all right, expanding your reach. The image there on the screen you're seeing is from from the CBS award-winning Your Day app. Which basically, CBS has taken a little bit different approach in that rather than building individual apps for all of our stations and all of our different markets, we've built a national app that allows you at any given point to pick what market you'd like from and then pulls the content from that particular market. Since CBS has radio and television presence in virtually all of the, the major markets, it's a pretty easy way to keep people engaged with our brand well beyond just our borders. So if you're traveling to New York on business, you're going to LA, you're, going to St. Louis, we can hopefully keep you as an online customer. One key trend that is emerging in terms of mobile web and apps, there's a lot of national data coming out to support this now. App use is starting to hit a decline and starting to go pretty rapidly. The amount of new apps that people are downloading are just simply not there. They take up a lot of processing power on our phones and mobile devices. So mobile web is becoming more important than ever, I think, because you can't guarantee that folks are actually going to go to the trouble of downloading your app. So you want to make sure that whatever you're able to provide on an app, you can provide on your mobile web. Video, audio, etc. Social media, I'll talk about that real briefly here. It's important, but let's keep in mind, social media, they're the pipes of the internet, if you will, not the destination. And I think, too many times it's viewed in a vacuum of, oh, we just got to pump the information out there. Well, okay, and we get what out of that? How do we measure the success of social media? And everybody likes, well, I've got 10,000 likes. Doesn't mean anything to me. Let's talk about conversion. I would equate this much similar to your effort to try to retain for your late newscast those people who are watching you in the prime time 10 o'clock hour on TV. You can say, well, we did this great promo in the 10 o'clock hour that reached, X number of thousands of people. Well, okay, but no news director cares about that number. What you care about are the number of people that you actually held that you got to watch the 11 o'clock news. And so what I look for in social media in terms of success is, what's our referral traffic from social media? Are we driving referrals? Because if we're not taking people ultimately and driving them to our platform that we can monetize, if they're just staying on Twitter and Facebook and going, hey, thanks for that information, see you later, that long term doesn't help our business. Another means of expanding reach, content syndication. I call this meet my frenemies. Sometimes your competitors can be a big help. Obviously, there are entities like the Center for Investigative Reporting, not really a competitor, but are means that can help you. But there are also means that you can distribute your content elsewhere. We do video syndication. We have deals in place with SF Gate to utilize our video, and also with Yahoo for their Yahoo local sections. So that gives us a tremendous opportunity there to be able to get our content out. And we're able to monetize that content because we're still in control of the ad inventory in front of those streaming videos. Last but not least, in terms of expanding your reach, better on-air teasing. And you would think we wouldn't need to say it in this day and age, but I'm still amazed at the number of occasions, and it's happened on CBS too. So I'm not just pointing to to others, but I cringe every time I hear a tease. And there's more about this on our website. Yeah, really? Okay, I'm not going to go there for that. You've got to give me an audience call to action. No different than television promotion, of a sweeps piece tries to drive me to want to watch, that piece. So you got to give me something more than just more. You wouldn't do a tease in a newscast. Hey, we'll be at the end of the first segment. Hey, we'll be back with more after this. Really? That's not going to hold me. I think I'm going to go, make dinner, make a phone call, do 20 other things, So the audience call to action is just key when promoting your website. Tell me what it is that you're going to give me. You're going to give me those investigative documents. You're going to give me, the complete exclusive interview with the mayor. You're going to, tell me what it is that you're going to give me. Make it worth my time. Finally, the part that we'll talk about here that has been mentioned is monetization. Show me the money. So where do we go? How do we do this? Well, first off, I would contend user-engaging content is a win always around. The particular shot here is from something that we do annually called the Bracket Challenge in conjunction with March Madness, which is obviously a big event for CBS. Content that's engaging the audience, drives traffic, opportunity to easily monetize, because in this case here, presented by Xfinity, we can tie in the sponsored brand. We're not compromising a news product per se, with this style of a sponsorship. So it can be the Xfinity Bracket Challenge. There's no problem with that. So look for those types of content opportunities that both engage the user, and if you engage the user, the money follows, and particularly if you have unique opportunities to be able to work the brand, the sponsored brand in. No giveaways or value added. Do not give away, well, if you buy this on-air schedule, here, we'll give you some free ads on the website. It's never going to work for you, because if you give me something for free, the value I assign it is zero. That's what I associate it's worth, because if it was really worth something, you'd charge me for it. Don't go down that road. If you do go down that road, you're doing long-term damage to yourself, because then when you do try to charge for it, people are going to look at you and go, why would I pay for that? You were giving it to me free last week. The bundled approach in terms of selling, which is, leveraging our assets, TV and web. If your website has a lot of the same componentry as on air, no reason that there can't be sponsorship packages bundled together that offer both an on-air sponsorship and, for an additional charge, an online sponsorship. Easy way to bring in, some extra dollars to support your digital efforts. Dedicated digital sellers. I think this is important because, once again, going back to my notion, TV people, if I'm a TV sales rep, you give me a choice between selling TV and the commission that's associated with that or selling the internet, well, I'm going to sell TV. So we know that. So how much are you really going to grow your digital revenue if you're relying solely on television sellers? Just like in most stations, you have dedicated content people for the internet. You need dedicated digital sellers, people who understand the digital space and are able to go out and communicate that effectively. That helps in all of the organizations that I've been in, be it CBS, be it BELO. Having the dedicated digital sellers is a clear win. Mobile is our biggest challenge and our biggest opportunity. The eyeballs are moving to mobile. Facebook now has more people who access it every day by mobile than they do on a computer screen. So mobile is key. We all know that the eyeballs are going to mobile. The challenge that exists there is we don't have the ad inventory that we have online. We don't have a lot of banner space. We don't have pencil push downs and skins and all of these other fancy, what I'll call in-your-face options that advertisers like. So that is going to be our great challenge. But that's where I guess I get back into things like Bracket Challenge, where you can actually build the sponsor into the content, is probably our best chance there. Just much the same as on television now. The networks are frequently looking at product placement to get around the notion that people DVR shows and then fast forward through the commercials. And then finally, I would say revenue opportunities exist in all market sizes. You know, you could take a look if you're in a smaller market and say, well, okay, the Bay Area, it makes sense, you know. We can see how you guys would have opportunities to monetize it, but hey, I'm in Fresno or I'm here or I'm there. I will tell you, I think the opportunities are greater sometimes in the smaller and mid-sized markets than they are in the large markets, simply for the reason that things aren't as cluttered. The number of voices that there are in a large market aren't there in the smaller markets. People have a greater dependency, if you will, a greater desire, a greater kinship with their on-air broadcasters. And that can translate well online. I have a friend of mine who works for a television group that will remain nameless, but they are a large owner of purely middle and small market stations. And last year, they generated more online revenue than some of the network-owned station groups. So the opportunities are there. And with that, I will shut up and sit down.
All right, thank
shut
you.
Up and stand up and sit down.
Well, you've heard from all of our panelists, and a great wealth of information here that you've gotten today, and I'm sure some people have questions. So anybody in our audience who has a question, we ask you to go to the mic. If there are any online people who have questions, send your questions in, and we will, of course, ask them. All right, does anybody have a question to start out? If not, I will start the questioning. There's so many things. I have all these notes. One of the things that seems to come out of all of your presentations is that the web is obviously bringing in a lot of new eyeballs and more eyeballs. I think, Janice, in your statistics, you had like 8 million people consuming information on their mobile device as opposed to 3 million people watching your newscast. Are we at a point where the web is actually cannibalizing our news operations, even though the news operations are where the money is? And what's going to happen as a result of that? Any of you can start that out.
I'll go ahead and start that out. This is, like Jim said, anything I say is my words and not that of my company. Sort of my view is that we know that television viewing is not as grand as it used to be when I was born. So we know that people are more mobile. We know that people are wanting their stuff now. So when you add all that, I think that, you know, is mobile cannibalizing web? Is that, well, we're not all sitting at home anymore. The fact that I could sit here and write email and take notes and now send it to myself is like crazy, you know, at the beginning. So I think that as a company needs to be thinking about its content. That's so much king, and maximizing the new technology to deliver to the viewer. So is it killing, if you will, or eroding the web presence? Yeah, I suppose, but it's not by virtue of the content itself. It is by virtue of the lifestyle that we lead. And I could blame it on technology. If technology was not so cool and so portable, then we'd force everybody to go home and like do it from home because you couldn't carry around your PC, your desktop with you. So I think that there is a fear, and we see the trend going on as Jim had talked about. Mobile is growing exponentially. I think tablet had a big burst. I think that the Android market is going to try to make a big burst. We'll see whether or not Android is going to be that competitive to make all tablets grow even further. But technology costs money. So people who don't have money are not necessarily buying technology, buying tablet technology. Cell phones, just about everybody has a cell phone or smartphone now. I used to have one that didn't have, you know, you could get data plan and everything. It's like I'm really old and because I wouldn't change. It worked for me, but now I've crossed over. And, you know, you're right, I don't leave home without it, and I use it at every interval possible. But I think that the television viewership is down, web viewership is down, if you will.
I think you have to be careful. Well, television viewership is down when it comes to local news. But when you look at overall television viewership, it's actually up. So people are watching TV still. They still watch TV.
But they're watching Dancing with the Stars
They're
and
just
not
watching. I mean, so think about even 10 years ago, how many channels you had on, if you had cable or dish or direct. And now you look at, I think I've got like 900 channels, right? So there's so much noise out there and there's so much choice for people to make. And even when it comes to news, you know, you have cable, you know, everybody's got a new business channel, everybody's got a new this channel and that channel. Even think about sports. I mean, you look at, you know, 15 years ago, there was no Comcast Sportsnet, right? You had Fox Sports, but we watched Giants games and A's games on KTVU or on KRON or whoever, and, you know, now they're on Comcast Sportsnet. So there's a lot more choice out there. So I don't want to say it's cannibalizing. There's just a lot of different ways now for people to get their information. And everybody and their cousin is doing news. And the journalism lines have blurred a little bit because now you have all these bloggers that, you know, I think some people think that's the other, that they're going to them to get news. And it may not necessarily be journalism. It's their blogging, right? So there's a lot of choices out there. And ultimately what you have to do is, you know, we talk about all the time, brand, 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 brand. It's all about your brand. And then, you know, building that brand and using all the different platforms you have to build your brand, right? Do I still want people to come to television? Absolutely. But you have to figure out the experience you create on each one of those platforms. It needs to be a little bit different. You know, you've got Twitter as one platform, you've got your website's another platform, TV's another platform. So how do you create a rich experience for your customer on each one of those platforms to ultimately build your brand and really grow that audience? I mean, somebody was talking about San Bruno. That was such a great, it was such a great learning experience for TV producers because we all had San Bruno happen. And, you know, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, the ratings weren't awesome. You know, they were pretty low, actually. But then you looked at the web, and it was humongous. I mean, the video, the live streaming that people were watching, the stories that people were getting, the amount of content we were able to put on the web, it was fascinating, you know. But those are all still our viewers. They're still watching us. They're just watching us in a different place.
And for anybody who's out there in Webland who doesn't know San Bruno, this was the San Bruno fire, the PG&E gas pipeline explosion that turned into a sort of a huge fireball. And I can see why people were watching this. The video was exceptionally spectacular. Yes.
I was just going to add, Barbara, that the cannibalization that you talk of, it's happening anyway. We're not doing it to ourselves. As Janice mentioned, I mean, lifestyle, technology has propelled it. So the only question in my mind is, are we going to follow where the audience is moving? And are we going to serve them? Or are you going to put your hands up and go, oh, well, no, they're not consuming the way I'd like them to consume. And at that point, with the way television news viewership is going, at some point, maybe, you know, decades from now, but at some point you will be dead if you don't move and establish and carve out an aggressive presence in these digital spaces. You will, at some point, when that great merger of the screens happens, you're going to be dead.
And the one thing I'll say about our market in particular, I was talking to Barbara about this earlier, I kind of call us the canary in the coal mine. And we have the, you know, we have the lowest huts in the country. You know, this is one of the top markets in the world for early adoption and for mobile use and DVR use and blah, 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 blah. But if you're out watching online, we're the canary in the coal mine. And so it's coming to you next. So what you see happening here, it's great to look at us for an example of what's happening in television because it's coming to other places. We're already starting to see it in New York and LA and Chicago, but it's going to permeate through the rest of the country.
Brian, I thought you were getting ready to add something to this.
Well, you know, Jonathan was pining for the 90s earlier. Janice and I probably don't want to go into too many details, but we remember the 80s in this business. And, you know, Barbara, 1985 ain't never coming back. It's really not. You know, I mean, it was a different world. There was no internet. There were 3 local affiliates, maybe 2 or 3 independents, the NP or the PBS station, and that was it. And, you know, you really could hope to get, you know, like I said, I worked in the early 90s at a ABC O&O in Houston where we routinely got 10s and 11s at 6 o'clock in the morning. Those days are not coming back. So we can all sit around and pine for the good old days. And trust me, as someone who's worked at KRON for a long time, we have a lot of people who pine for the good old days. And boy, life was just grand back then. And we had 15 producers we could throw at everything and blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Life moves on. And if you're not ready to move on with it, see ya.
My boss likes to say, today is the good old days.
Yeah,
Tomorrow's
exactly.
a new day.
Exactly.
Tomorrow's going to be the good old days.
Right.
Okay, we have a question from someone on, and I think you said South Carolina,
Yes.
who is sending this in on the web. And he says, you talked about building news shows or news stories from social content. Who is doing that digitally, like Rebel Mouse, for example?
Well, I'll answer. I guess I won't answer it for the broadcast side, but Rebel Mouse is a woman on my team. So part of my job, and I have a staff of 5 people, is to track the impact of our stories. So we have a private tracker where, we'll post a veteran story, then everything that's covered in it. And then Rebel Mouse is just pure aggregation. It just is connected to that, and we move the stories in there. You can also hook it up to your social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, anything you have right there to show, again, all the impact of all your other sites on that. But that is still, there's no pure solving everything. It's still hand done. But it's a lot easier in that it just makes it more visual than if you have to hand code it yourself.
And there are tools out there like Storify, I think, has done a good job of being able to, again, aggregate tweets and Facebook posts and YouTube videos and a lot of other UGC stuff, and then to be able to organize it and present it online in a good way. I mean, there's a lot of apps out there. I know we've been working with some people to try to develop an app that will actually geolocate on their mobile, and we'll be able to to coordinate that with breaking news. We know there's a big fire in Burlingame, and we have X number of registered users, and we can see they're within a 2-mile, radius of it. So, make sure you're safe, but if you can't, take a picture and send it to me.
Get safety first, that's right.
I would just say just one thing on the Storify that somebody on this panel brought up, I can't remember who it is, just the curation and aggregation. I think less and less people don't really care who had it first, they just want it, so that if KRON broke something and other people use a Storify to pull that information in and curate a conversation around that, it doesn't matter. It's your audience is going to be there, and just because KRON broke it, they don't really care, they just want the story. So I think there's high value in thinking of there's exclusivity in that, but it's also just can you curate the conversation that people are seeing elsewhere on your space and do it better than other people? And Storify is a great way to do it because, again, it travels really well, and people just want to have the conversation. And if they love your brand, they want to have it with you. They don't care who had the story first.
Another tool that we were really involved in breaking in a news context is Cover It Live. If any of you have used Cover It Live, but that was literally a situation where I saw a story in Mashable that morning about this new tool that they were using for live blogging tech conferences. And that afternoon, the Santa Cruz Summit fire broke out. And I went to my boss, I said, I saw this thing, you want to try it? He said, yeah, what the hell, we'll try it. And, over the next 3 or 4 days, we had this incredible community that built up around it of people engaged in real life, real-time conversations, people providing, basic kind of information about how do I evacuate my horses, how do I protect my livestock. And it was one of those things that for those of us in this business where we're used to being, we talk, you shut up and listen. Right? I mean, that's the basic paradigm of broadcasting. People were asking me questions. I was moderating this thing, and I didn't have the slightest clue to the answer to those questions. But we had other people out there that were, and it became this really, really powerful tool that we've used in a lot of different ways, and it's been good for us. But again, it's just, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of people that are making apps that are making, various different ways of presenting information, and to just try stuff. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we'll move on and try something else.
And we do have Rachel Schwartz joining us now. So Rachel, do you want to comment on anything that's gone on so far?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on, people are talking about no one cares who got it first. And I think that's really where digital and social platforms have a strength there, is that someone's going to be first, obviously, but then who can continue the conversation? And I think this is somewhere where the strength in digital versus traditional broadcast, where your newscast ends or maybe your newscast isn't starting for another 3 hours. Digital, and then specifically social, is where you can give people updates, and that's where you're going to draw your following from. Is not, it's great if you're first, but can you continue to provide people with the information that they need and they want as a story develops?
Okay, this question comes from someone in Ohio. You've kind of talked a little bit about this already, but she'd like for you to elaborate on, shouldn't we be looking at TV and the web as one rather than looking at them as sort of competitors with each other?
Absolutely.
Well, I would say that's true that that they're, in my view, they're not competitors. And if you view it as, and I think that's an old school way of viewing that existed for a long time in broadcast newsrooms, was that notion of, oh yeah, this if we feed the digital beast, we'll only destroy our on-air presence. And I think we've pretty much covered the fact that, you know, we need to get beyond that. It is one, but there are different needs, as I talked about before, in terms of people's consumption habits, that we know what they want from TV versus what they want from digital. Digital is not going to be a place, I don't think, long-term, where people are going to say, gee, I think I'll sit down on my tablet or on my iPhone and watch a newscast. I just, it doesn't fit with people's lifestyles. You know, I'm on there, I want particular news that affects me, that revolves around where I live, where my kid goes to school, you know, things that directly impact me, and that's the content that I'm looking to consume. So people are looking for small bursts here and there of information that's relevant to them when you're talking about digital versus, once again, television is still, just by nature of what it is, it's broadcasting. It's, you know, painting a broad picture to a broad audience. So they're not competitive, but rather they're complementary if done correctly.
And I don't disagree with that, although I think Janice and I both have anecdotal experience of a lot of people who do watch newscasts online, both on the website and on mobile platforms. Obviously, there are some gate issues there technologically, both in terms of battery life, right, because this damn thing dies on me, and also in terms of data costs and the like, to be able to stream. So it's got to be pretty compelling. But we've also found that the people that do tune in and watch us, actually watch long-form newscasts, there may not be a zillion of them, but they are very, very, very loyal. And if it doesn't work, we hear from them.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, and the person from Ohio wanted to let all of you know that TV is not dead. We have a question from someone at the podium, and tell us who you are and who you represent in your question.
Hi, panelists. My name is Terry Adams. I represent KGO Radio. And I have a question for you. With so many options available to consumers in terms of how they can consume their news, I noticed that the San Francisco Chronicle has come out with a secondary website that is a paid subscriber-based website. Do you think that consumers who really want to follow news will want to start paying for their news content in the future? Is that going to be a trend?
I'll give you a quick answer to that. No. And here's why. Here's why I don't think it works. Only if you're in a very, what I would call, an elite tier. If you're the Wall Street Journal and you've got content that nobody else has, that might work. If you're in the business, you know, with a broadcast media website, where effectively, okay, aside from that big investigation that you might do, or this exclusive that you might get day in, day out, again, we're all chasing a lot of the same stories. So if I put up a paywall there from you, this kind of gets to my sales notion that I was talking about earlier. When people are accustomed to getting something for free, to all of a sudden tell them, well, you have to pay for it, you're going to be met with resistance. And in this case here, what people will do, and what's happened in other places where this has been tried, is that audience tends to shift somewhere else where you don't have that barrier, to which my response is I hope the Chronicle puts more stuff behind the paid wall, because I think for all of us at this table here, that's good for business.
Yeah. Jim took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I would have even said the Wall Street Journal, you know, unless you have some kind of a niche. We all started giving it away for free. You can't go back. You know, some people have tried to go back on it, and a lot of those that have tried to go back on it have quickly shifted or lost it. They've gone right back to giving it away for free.
The New York Times is still doing their pay part of it. I mean, part free and part pay. And the person who asked the question earlier about who is building content from social said that we kind of misunderstood the question, and I'm not sure we still understand it, but he wants to know who specifically on the panel is doing that, who is doing what from building content from social media.
I think I can probably hop in there as an online news producer for ABC7. I am absolutely involved in day-to-day production for all of our digital platforms, and so that means, you know, being in the newsroom, being in contact with show producers, reporters out in the field, our assignment desk, talking to them about what we're working on and how we want to present it, and that's working with a team of people of what's going on the website, what's going on our mobile apps, what are we pushing out in social, and how are we presenting it on all of those different platforms in a way that's complementary to each other as well as complementary to our newscast.
Yeah, if you're talking about just purely building content only for social, we do very little of that. I mean, we use it as a driver. However, we use Google Plus quite a bit. I think we're one of the few local stations that use it, and we use Hangouts, and that is content that we are building specifically for social.
And from. I think that he was asking about both, using the social content to actually build news stories.
Well, I think that social has become just an absolute part of the news gathering process, whether it be receiving just out of the blue tips via Twitter, to working a story and reaching out on social to find contacts, to find whether it be imagery or video or a voice for a story. It's just become part of the process at this point. I think everyone at the table would agree.
But Twitter's almost become a wire. I mean, you still have to use your journalism, to check everything out, but it's a wire.
Okay, I think this will probably be our last question because we're almost out of time. We talked about monetizing and the ads. One of the things that you notice on the ads on the web, when you go to a news story on the web that you want to watch, you are forced to watch the ad, as opposed to if you have recorded it somewhere else, you could fast forward through it. What kind of feedback are you getting from web users? Because if you watch 2 or 3 stories on the web, you got to see that same ad often 3-4 times, and it's so annoying.
People don't like it, but my response is that's that's our model. You have 2 models. It's either we put up the paid wall and you pay for it, which most people seem not inclined to do, or you go the advertiser model, which is obviously one that as broadcasters we're all well familiar with. And so, but I got to be honest, since A, we're in a space where everybody effectively does it. So it's not, and B, quite frankly, my experience in the business has been we get a lot higher CPMs. We're able to sell those video pre-roll ads for a lot higher than a lot of other advertising inventory.
Because we're forced to watch them.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But I guess I equate it, it's no different than, I watch some programming on demand on cable. And a lot of the networks have gone to inhibiting you from being able to fast forward through the on-demand. So this is no different than that. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to be able to, we've all talked here about the struggles of monetizing, and getting those digital revenues up. We have to, it'd be nice if we could provide you something with no advertising that was free. I would love that, and when someone figures out that utopia, I want to be a part of it. But until then, I think we're stuck with a little aggravation. Now, I mean, what we do, and I think most places have kind of this as a standard approach, but we limit the length of those pre-roll spots. You won't get a 30-second or a 60-second spot. It's generally 15 seconds. Sometimes 20 max. Yep. So we do from that standpoint, and we do also try to employ things like frequency caps so that recognizing that you don't want to be inundated with the same Jack in the Box ad 20 times.
Yeah, and there are a few that actually have a skip button that says you can skip this ad.
After 5 seconds or something like that.
Most of them don't.
If your spot's longer than your content, you got a problem. You got big problems, yeah.
I will say that one of the things that the iFiles channel, our YouTube channel, is doing that we would love for people to take a look is it's basically a test of like how people watch online video, and we're creating reports so that shows how people want to watch longer. They're willing to watch through maybe pre-rolls in the middle of things. So part of the goal of the iFiles that we'd love to talk with all you guys about is how people consume consume video online and how to kind of figure out how to make money from that. And one of the things that like I'll throw out there is that people do want longer content and are willing to wait through pre-rolls midway or maybe two if it means that they can start immediately. So I think figuring out like different ways that you can play with the ads, maybe it's on the front, maybe it's on in the middle, maybe your video is longer so you can have that is good. And kind of in terms of investigative news, people want that experience. They want to watch it as if it's on TV. They're used to that. That's what everyone's used to video. So they're willing to kind of get that interspersedness if it means they get the full video.
And I think you are starting to see advertisers play with the traditional pre-roll model, whether it be, you know, after 5 seconds you can skip, or if you type in a keyword on the screen, it'll let you skip the ad. Or even I know something that I've experienced personally that I think Hulu does as part of their model is they give you the choice of, you know, watch 90 seconds of ads before your show starts, and then you don't have to watch ads during it. So I think we are starting to see advertisers play with the model.
You know, I was just going to mention that there's research at least a while ago about how much a web viewer was willing to watch as a pre-roll. So I think it was around 12 seconds. And if we're pushing it to 20, we may be irritating a few people, or we've created a new diet that it's okay. As I told you, we do live streaming for all of our newscasts, so we take commercial breaks. And we run a 2-minute commercial break at the same time it's on the air. We run a whole different set on the web stream. We've never had anybody complain about those commercial breaks, except to the fact that sometimes they're loud. And, you know, we fixed that with the Calming Act. But other than that, no one's ever said, why can't you put 2 minutes of content in there? So I think we've created a, you know, while society has created, and they moved along and we go with them, we also create a diet for them of what to expect. I mean, they may be more accepting.
Okay.
Can I just, I got a question apparently that somebody had sent from that I just wanted to address real quickly before we wrap up. And this is also from WLTX in Columbia, that this person says they've set up a blacklist. We talked about people that curse and say also all manner of terrible evil on our Facebook page. He says he set up a blacklist of words automatically filtered on the Facebook page. Yes, we have that as well. The thing I would say is that doesn't take away the place of human curation on these things. That even if you put the filters as high as possible and put as many naughty words as you can possibly think of, and you know, that's an afternoon's work there, right there. Oh, what'd you do at work today? Oh, I thought up all the words that we don't want to know. The problem is that the Facebook algorithms are not perfect. That they will still flag things that are perfectly fine, that you can't possibly imagine what the algorithm was thinking when it flagged it. It'll flag people who post in all caps. So it still takes, yes, the blacklist of words is a great tool, but it still takes human curation to make it really work.
Okay. Well, I'm going to close with kind of a condensed excerpt from an article in The Economist about the future of news. It says 300 years ago, news traveled by word of mouth or letter and circulated in taverns and coffee houses in the form of pamphlets, newsletters, and broadsides. Everything changed in 1833 with the first mass audience newspaper. Then the penny press, followed by radio and television, turned news from a two-way conversation into a one-way broadcast, with a relatively small number of firms controlling the media. Now the news industry is returning to something closer to the coffee house. The internet is making news more participatory, social, diverse, and partisan, reviving the discursive ethos of the era before mass media. The transformation of the news business is unstoppable, and attempts to reverse it are doomed to failure. And although this transformation does raise concerns about too much partisanship and lack of accountability, there is much to celebrate in the noisy, diversive, vociferous, argumentative, and stridently alive environment of the news business in the age of the internet. The coffee house is back. Enjoy it. So thank you all for participating. Let's give our panelists a hand.